All right, this is 1010, complex rational expressions. This is like what we like to call the, actually Mr. Chides calls them the super fractions. So every, 7th grade pre-algebra student's nightmare is dealing with fractions. Well, they really have no idea until they get here. That's when we have a fraction within a fraction. But it's not as scary as you think, because now actually you've got the skills. In fact, when this problem came up earlier, you really didn't have the skills set to simplify it. So all we're really doing is simplifying complex rational expressions. So what I want to know is what number could we multiply everything by, or could we use to clear 3, 2, and 6? 6. So I'm going to multiply everything by a 6. Now I'm going to use that identity property and multiply really by 6 over 6. Okay? So when I'm multiplying by 6 over 6, I'm really just multiplying by that fancy 1. We're using the identity property, so it's not changing the value. Now, I'm multiplying the whole fraction by 1. Okay? Not just the right side of the numerator. So sometimes when I'm doing this, I actually put that 6 on both sides. Right? I don't need to write it both times. But for my own purposes, so I can make notes, I'll put that 6 over there, because we know that 6 goes here and here. So I can just have something to cross cancel. I'll place that 6 over here as well. Right? And it's really like having a 6 over 1 and a 6 over 1. And so when we distribute here, what gets cross-canceled? The 3 and the 6, and what's left? What? 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to be left with a 4. And when I distribute here, what can we cross-cancel? 2, and what am I left with a 6? A 3, and I multiply it in and I get plus, because I've got that plus 3x. All over, I can cross-cancel this, and I'm left with x. Is that as simplified as we can get? Then we stop. Okay? So that's how we do it. It's pretty much the same all the way through. Oops, let me go back here. Pause it if you want to take some notes. Okay, can I move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, what do you think the best number would be for the first one to clear it?
10.
What? 10. So I'm multiplying top numerator and denominator by 10 over 1, 10 over 1. Okay? Why don't you guys pause the recording and see if you can finish it up? All right, let's check our work. So, when I'm distributing on the first one, we end up with a 5. When I distribute on the second one, I'm left with a 2x plus 2x. When I distribute down below with the 4/5, I'm left with a 8. And when I distribute the 10 to the negative 8, to the negative x, I'm left with minus 10x. Now, what I like you to do at this point, if anything can be factored in the end, factor it. Because remember, we're left in this fraction form. So, what can we factor out of the denominator? Yep, Jesse? A 2, and I'm left with 4 minus 5x. Now, the only reason why I do that is because in the event that I can cross-cancel here and here. I can't, so we leave it in that factored form. All right, next one. You want to try the next one on your own?
Yeah.
Pause the recording, and let's try the next one on our own. Okay, Gael, what am I clearing by? Multiplying everything by?
Multiplying everything by y.
Perfect. So when I multiply everything by y, when I distribute to the first term, what's left, Gael?
What's left is y
And when I distribute to the second one, plus,
plus 1.
good. In the denominator, when I distribute Ella,
3.
I'm left with a 3 because those cross cancel. And when I distribute here,
Negative y.
minus y, and that's our final answer. Questions? Lilia, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to move up? Okay. All right, so we'll make it a little bit more complex as we keep going. What do you guys think we clear by now? 4y. Okay. Oops. Now, if you are clearing by 8y, is that going to be a problem? You just have to simplify in the end. Okay, so why don't you guys try? And remember, we're multiplying everything by 4y over 1, 4y over 1. Pause the recording and try it on your own. When I distribute here, what am I left with? 1. When I distribute here, what are we left with?
Oh, where's the shoot?
What are we left with? 2y. Plus, minus? Minus 2y. Okay, when I distribute here, what am I left with, Ella?
We're left with 2y.
And when I distribute here, what am I left with, Jordan?
You're left with negative 1.
Negative 1. Are we done? Why? Carson?
You can multiply either one by negative 1.
I'm not multiplying. Who can use the correct wording? Yeah.
You can factor by negative 1 and take it out of one of your equations.
I can take a negative 1 out of the numerator or denominator, out of the expressions. I'm going to not just multiply one thing by negative 1. There is no property of equality that allows that. But I can take it out of. That's totally different. Okay, I can take it out of the old numerator, and what it does is it flips it around to 2y minus 1 when I factor. Okay, and then I've got another 2y minus 1, and I'm left with what? Negative 1. Now, the reason why I don't like that wording is because what you're telling me is I can do this. Multiply by negative 1. When I do that, I end up with this. Do you understand? That's different than pulling it out of the original quantity. That's not equal to what the answer is. We're not just multiplying it by negative 1. Does that make sense? You guys clear on that? Okay. No, what his wording to me said was this. I don't want to hear you just multiply by negative 1 when, in fact, we are factoring here. To factor is to pull the negative 1 out of here and it reverses it. What he's asking me to do is to just multiply the original amount by negative 1. If I multiply it in, then I get this. You understand what I'm saying, Josh? Yeah? Yes.
You factored the negative 1 out of the denominator.
Of course. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay, so now we're moving on. Okay, you want to try 2 more? Pause the recording and see if you can do these 2. To clear it, what are we multiplying it by? I want to hear from people I haven't heard from. Okay, Carson, what am I multiplying, clearing by? A squared. Did anybody just try and clear by A?
No.
Because A won't get rid of our A squared. So when I distribute on the numerator, what are we left with? 5a, and in the denominator, when I distribute to the 1,
You get a squared minus 3.
minus 3. Good. Okay. Next one. What are we clearing by? How about Jesse Santos?
AB.
AB. So I'm multiplying by the monomial AB. In the numerator, what will be left?
1.
1. And in the denominator,
B minus A.
B minus A. Questions? Okay. Okay, now this one gets a little sneaky. What do you think the least common denominator is? Well, okay, I'm going to want you to notice something. Here's a monomial, and here's a binomial.
Is it x, y times x minus y?
Yes, you need the monomial xy, and you also need that quantity times the quantity x minus y. Okay, now, when we distribute to the first one, what are we left with? To the first fraction in the numerator. Y times the quantity of x minus y. Yes. Minus x times the quantity of x minus y. All over xy. Good. Now, I'm going to distribute and mix it all together. Distribute and mix it all together. Okay? You guys with me? Y times x is xy. Y times negative y is negative y squared. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times negative y is plus xy. Okay, Lilia, are you confused? Okay, where did you get confused? Okay, so go back. I'm going to just show you this in a different way. Isn't this the same thing as this? xy times x minus y. Are you clear on the denominator, why we're using that?
Yeah.
Isn't this still a 1, right? I line it up over 1, over 1, over 1. Okay, when I distribute here, look what I lose. And what's left?
Y times x minus y.
And I've got that minus sign right here, right? Minus. Then I've got my, when I distribute here, what gets cross-canceled? No.
Y.
Y. And what's left?
X times x minus y.
All over. I really only need to do it once down here. I don't need this other one. When I distribute here, what's going to cross-cancel?
The x minus y.
The binomial x minus y. And what's left?
X y.
Yeah. Now, as I distribute here, what do we get? Good. As I distribute here,
Minus negative y squared.
minus y squared. Now, I've got this too. What do I get? Minus,
Minus x squared
and one more time.
plus xy.
Okay, all over xy. So that's where I was right here. Okay? Now we can combine like terms. What can be combined up there? Yes. xy, I have two xy's. And I'm going to put it in alpha order, put the x squared first. And the y squared last. And now it's starting to look like something. What does that kind of look like? Perfect square trinomial. Okay, so if I factor out a -1, now it does look like a perfect square trinomial. Makes everything opposite. Well, how do I factor x squared minus 2xy plus y squared? What does it become? Yep, it's a perfect square, and 2 times the root of both of those. Okay, so it's x minus y times x minus y. Can't we say x minus y squared? Yes? -1, there's nothing to cross cancel. Okay, questions? Josh, questions? Okay, can I move forward? Matthew, questions? Okay. What do you think we do first? Phoebe?
Factor the denominator of the numerator.
And then factor the denominator of the numerator. What does that factor to?
X plus 1 times quantity of x minus 1.
That's right. So what am I going to clear by, Justin?
Clear by x plus 1 times x minus 1.
Good. Okay. So now when I do that, in the numerator, what will I be left with? You want to finish it? And back to recording. Okay. So when we distribute in the numerator, what do we end up with? Alina?
I got 1
A 1 in the numerator. Good, because they both cross cancel. And then when I distribute in the denominator, what's left?
3 times the quantity of x minus 1.
Good, 3 times the quantity. And leave it in that factored form. Questions? Okay, last problem. How do you think we approach this next problem? Phoebe?
Factor the denominator and the numerator.
Yep.
And then
No, yeah, the denominator in both the numerator and denominator. So the top one is going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. But the bottom one is going to be the quantity of x plus 3 squared. So it's x plus 3 times x plus 3. You guys with me? What does the what is the common denominator going to be, guys? Rand? What'd you say?
X plus 3 times x plus 3 times x minus.
Right. We need 2x plus 3's because of this. Okay? And we need 1x minus 3 for the denominator. So, I'm going to multiply by x plus 3 squared times x minus 3. Okay? In the numerator, when I distribute, okay? When I distribute, I'm only taking out 1x plus 3. Do you understand? When I'm distributing this, since there's 2 in there, I'm left with 1. Then I can cross cancel these, so I'm left with 6 times x plus 3. Now here, I'm going to distribute, and I'm left with over 4 times x minus 3. Can I multiply the top or the bottom by a -1 so I can cancel out that binomial? No, it won't help. It'll make it -x, -3. That doesn't match. It'll make it 3 minus x. That doesn't match. So, can we simplify anything? What, Matthew?
6 over 2.
I can simplify. I can divide out a 2, and I'll be left with a 3. And I can divide out a 2, and I'll be left with a 2. And so my final answer is 3 times x plus 3 over 2 times x minus 3. And that, if you only give me the original question, if you only give me this as your question, you're going to lose half points. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you didn't fully simplify. All fractions simplified. I was at a math competition this last weekend, and the rules were you must simplify all fractions. So one of the kids had this, like, let's say 5 was the answer, and they had this. They did not get it because they did not simplify. So in algebra, we always simplify. If it can be reduced, if it can be reduced, it should be. It can be improper, but it needs to be simplified. Okay? All right, that's 10-10.